Good evening, it's VJ Franz K. I thought I would do just a very quick Apple Pencil review or discussion. Notice the way the pen is right now. It's connected to the single Thunderbolt port on the iPad Pro, which is also used for charging. And now I'll scoot it to the center of the table here. Attach the magnetic cap that goes over the little connector there. And you can see what I've been drawing are calligraphy on a program called Graphic, which is one of my favorites. But as I showed you, it sort of sticks out straight from the side of the unit. And that is kind of precarious or dangerous, I would say, because in an otherwise very well-designed unit, you can imagine somebody just coming by and, breaking it off, damaging the connector or something like that. It could very easily happen. And, you also have to lay it on a table and make sure that table is flat enough that it isn't raising or lowering the connector. It's a design flaw. I hate to say it. The other thing is that the Apple Pencil, it has its own internal battery that I don't think that a user can replace. And it gets charged up from the iPad Pro. Look at that line, though. It's hard to argue with that line. It gets charged up by the iPad Pro, but the charge doesn't last that long. So a lot of the time when I pick it up, I want to, spontaneously draw something or other that just appeared in my imagination. The pen isn't, or the pencil, it isn't ready to serve. It's out of charge or something like that. And then the other thing is, if it runs out of charge for too long, it forgets the Bluetooth pairing between the pencil and the thing. They're paired, and when you plug it in again, it'll ask, do you want to pair it? And that is another annoying step that could get in your way. You can use your charger with, they have a little intermediate connector which goes on there, and you can charge up the pen that way. But that doesn't help with the Bluetooth pairing issue. So on the Windows Surface and similar stylus computers, like the Veo Z Canvas that I have, the pen is powered by a replaceable battery. And it's just a standard battery that you can buy anywhere, or use a rechargeable battery if you want. So I would rather have an alternate Apple Pencil made by, Apple or some third-party company that would run on batteries. And another thing is it rolls. It rolls back and forth very easily because it's perfectly round, you notice. Futuristic object here. And yeah, it got lost for a couple of weeks. And I couldn't find it. I thought I might have to buy another one for $99 to continue my drawing. But luckily it turned up in the last place I expected to look, of course. So, but let's get back to what's good about it, which everyone will tell you. And I've got to agree with them that it is a really excellent stylus for drawing or painting or whatever. I'm sure you've seen people using Procreate, the popular iOS drawing app. And then there's also Affinity Studio that you can get. Affinity Photo, that's right, which is kind of like Photoshop. But the user interface on that is very different from Photoshop, so don't expect to be able to dive right into it because you're going to have to figure out their learning curve. And I've got to say, forgive me for saying this, the design on it doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe I'm just trained by decades with Photoshop or something, but yeah. I'll do another review or discussion with that. But this is Graphic, which is another app, and you notice I'm using the brush line here, maximum width. That is the base width, and then the width of the line is controlled by the amount of pressure I give it. I wish I could have even more width for the maximum and even more pressure modulation. And I don't want to press down on this too hard because, don't want to scratch my precious screen or something like that. Another thing to mention about the iPad Pro in general, and maybe it's just a design flaw with humans instead of the iPad, but, we leave a lot of fingerprints and other marks on this screen, even if our hands are basically clean. And those add up really fast. So, after a day or two of a lot of use, your screen is going to start looking very clouded with hand marks and stuff like that. So, about that, I don't know what the answer would be. Because wearing gloves or something like that would be bothersome, and also might block out the connection or the sensitivity of the screen for your hand. Anyway, yeah, you can see the vectors. I've just doing a couple takes of this video. I have made a lot of abstract art scribbles here, and that's why I like this program. It's sort of like Illustrator. It's a vector illustration program. Got a bunch of different layers. I can go and bring my original title sketch back to the top layer there, and even turn off some of these other ones. You get total adjustability with vector graphics, and that is what is so great about them. The other thing is, because vector graphics don't have a particular resolution of pixels, you can come back and look at your work a decade later, and it still looks crisp and perfect. Whereas if you designed it on Photoshop, it would probably look like a pixelized mess based on, how things had changed. We still have the standard Bezier vector curves. Don't call them Bezier curves, please. And these work much like on Adobe Illustrator. And you can export into scalable vector graphic SVG files, which are like an open source version of EPS. EPS is proprietary to Adobe, I guess. You could do a lot of your designing right in this program without having to go to Illustrator or other things. That's cool. Because, the pad is great. It's surprisingly light for how it feels like a strong object. It's not cheap, and it doesn't feel cheap. But it's really thin, so you can carry it around. Just show you the thinness here, but also the magnetic interlock points. Notice the pen kind of magnetizes to the edge, and that's also how the optional keyboard connects to the iPad Pro. And yes, the iPad Pro does have a sound output still on here. That is good, the headphone sound, and some of the other devices don't. Now, calling it the iPad Pro and having one port on the unit, not right. There should be 2 or 3 lightning ports on this unit because, this is the top of the line. You can't get more serious than this iPad right now. So, You know, there are going to be people who want to connect multiple devices easily to it without having to go for a bunch of hubs and other dongles. You know, your output connector can be used for such things as a high fidelity sound input output box, which I'm going to get soon, and I'll definitely show you on the channel. You can use it as a monitor out with a dongle that converts it to HDMI. But you know what would have been better than a dongle that converts to HDMI? How about a native HDMI port on the unit? Sounds like pro to me, but I don't know. I guess it goes against their ultra minimalist design philosophy. I do still like having the one button on the unit. I don't like the idea of a unit with no physical buttons, like iPhone X or something, as they call it. And the animals, that it turns your face into animals by looking at you with a special camera at the top of the iPhone X. But, you know, that also means that a special camera will be looking at you all the time. And of course, it's supposed to be secure. Of course, you know, nothing is supposed to happen with it, but who knows? Hackers can do all kind of weird things that you wouldn't expect until after they've done it. So, anyway, don't mean to be too critical. It is an amazing stylus. You're not going to find a better thing for drawing on your screen. When it is charged, paired, and working, you're not going to find a better one. But, you know, I could go for an alternate Apple Pencil with the similar technology, different power philosophy on there. Anyway, also, design. It is an obviously named program. I believe it is now owned by Autodesk. That does CAD and 3D software, as you may know. Yeah, it's amazing. It's interesting. If you're serious about computer art and you have the money, I would definitely recommend iPad Pro and Apple Pencil. Sort of concentrating more on talking than on drawing here, but you get transparency and all other things on these layers too, so you can just you can use it for serious art. This is not going to win any prizes the way it is with a bunch of scribbles, but adjusting the opacity. VJ Franz K signing out for now. Please subscribe, click like on this video if you did like it, and subscribe to me on Patreon if you could, just because it'll help me get more things to review, literally. And if you have a cool program, I do a lot of music as well as some art programs on my channel. So if you have one of those, or if you have a suggestion for one that should be reviewed, please contact me about that. And if you have a promo code or something, I would like to have that. This is the high-tech lifestyle, and we are living it to the fullest.